So after former President Obama claimed credit for our current economic boom yesterday, President Trump fired back, saying the boom is due to rolling back Obama's policies by cutting regulations and taxes. So who's right? Who cares? Think about it. The debate we're having isn't over how great things are. That ship has sailed. The media and the Dems see there's no more denying the success, so now it's about quibbling over credit. Fine, let the Dems have it. It won't win them election, but it might reduce their tears. Divorce rumors continue to escalate for the Obamas. Hopefully they can settle it like men.
What if the most celebrated political legacy of our time was actually built on a foundation of sand, propped up by a fawning media and a masterclass in public relations? Greg Gutfeld has just taken a flamethrower to the carefully constructed mythology of Barack Obama, peeling back the layers of charm and soaring rhetoric to reveal a far more troubling reality beneath. This isn't just a critique. It's a political autopsy that methodically dissects 8 years of what Gutfeld presents as broken promises, elite-class hypocrisy, and policies that sounded incredible on a teleprompter but crumbled upon contact with the real world. The narrative of hope and change has long been treated as untouchable, a sacred chapter in American history. But Gutfeld argues that this narrative was the greatest illusion of all, and he's here to pull back the curtain and ask the one forbidden question. Beyond the speeches and the celebrity endorsements, what did the 44th president actually accomplish?
Paul, is it helping the party to tell them to return to the rhetoric that helped them lose in 2024, like the dictator kind of stuff? It doesn't work on half the country. It's not going to get any better.
I don't think they have answers. And is it me? He's looking banged up.
The core of Gutfeld's argument is that Barack Obama perfected a stunning political magic trick, convincing a nation and the world that style was substance. For 8 years, the administration operated like a prestige television drama with a massive marketing budget, earning rave reviews from critics in the media even as the plot on the ground grew darker and more convoluted. While the headlines praised a soaring recovery, millions felt the reality of stagnant wages and a fragile job market. While the speeches promised a new era of post-partisan unity, the country grew more fractured than ever. Gutfeld's analysis doesn't rely on complex theories. It simply holds up the administration's promises against its results, using a lethal combination of unassailable facts and biting satire to slice through the fog of nostalgia. He contends that soaring oratory is no substitute for sound policy, and no amount of charisma can paper over the cracks of a foundation that was fundamentally flawed from the start.
Asking you to believe, not in my ability to bring about change, but in yours. Yes, we can. Yes, we did. Yes, we can.
Oh, God.
Well, it was a moving speech, and the audience response equally moving. So if the Obama presidency were a film, this speech would be the climax. All that's missing is the horse, the sunset, the rousing closing music as the title card reads the end, perhaps in cursive.
To truly grasp the critique, you have to see the Obama presidency through Gutfeld's eyes as the ultimate LinkedIn profile come to life. It was a masterpiece of branding, meticulously curated to showcase only the most flattering angles, endorsements from all the right thought leaders, and a summary filled with aspirational buzzwords like transparency, hope, and unity. The public perception, amplified by a devoted press corps, was that of a leader who could do no wrong, a figure who single-handedly rescued the economy, healed racial divides, and restored America's standing in the world. But Gutfeld argues for looking at the receipts, the gritty details hidden in the footnotes. He points to the unprecedented expansion of the national debt, the explosion of the surveillance state under the guise of security, and a foreign policy that often replaced stability with chaos, all while the president was collecting celebrity friends and perfecting his golf swing.
party with somebody that you don't like and you try to lose them at the party. That's what Obama has done to Joe. He's lost them at the party, and now he's moving on. And then he tweets, and then you find out that he's tweeting about something else while you're at the party. And it's just, I think it's kind of mean to Joe. The second thing is that it's part of that I told you mechanism that only happens when things are good. Because do you think Obama would take any responsibility if the good times were actually bad times?
Gutfeld peels back the layers of the Obama era with the righteous fury of a consumer who has discovered the warranty on a multi-trillion-dollar product is a complete sham. The initial promise of hope and change was intoxicating, a powerful antidote to years of war and economic anxiety. Yet, as Gutfeld lays out, by the end of 2 terms, that hope had been ground down by a grim reality. The much-touted economic recovery was, for many, a statistical anomaly that never reached their bank accounts, creating one of the slowest and weakest recoveries in modern history. While the media celebrated every fractional drop in the unemployment rate, they conveniently ignored the surge in underemployment and the millions who had simply given up looking for work altogether. The promise of change had morphed into a frustrating status quo, where the rich got richer, the political class remained insulated, and the average American was left to wonder if the golden ticket they were promised had gotten lost in the mail.
President Obama took another stand against evil yesterday, lashing out at ISIS, pernicious gang crime and human rights abuses in left-wing dictatorships like Venezuela and Cuba. I was kidding. He went after Fox News again.
I think the effort to suggest that the poor are sponges, leeches, are...
Let us drill down into the infamous stimulus plan, the nearly $1 trillion American Recovery and Reinvestment Act that was sold as the ultimate economic defibrillator. Gutfeld portrays this not as a serious recovery effort, but as a colossal exercise in political theater. He likens it to attempting to extinguish a raging inferno with a child's water pistol, a gesture that was more about being seen doing something than actually achieving a result. A huge portion of the funds, critics argue, didn't go to the shovel-ready projects that were promised, but were instead funneled into state coffers to patch up pre-existing budget holes or spent on projects with questionable economic value. The most enduring symbol of the stimulus became the ubiquitous green signs that popped up on highways, boasting of putting America to work. For Gutfeld and other critics, these signs were the perfect metaphor for the entire endeavor, a costly and self-congratulatory piece of advertising for a product that never really worked as advertised.
In an act of wonderfully skewed priorities, President Obama will appear in a reality TV show in which he gets survival tips from Bear Grylls in Alaska. Funny how far that is from the streets of Chicago, outposts in need of real survival training, much like the streets of Baltimore, Milwaukee, New York, New Orleans, where
Before we even get to the policy itself, the very idea of healthcare reform under Obama became a story of 2 completely different realities. On one side, it was presented as a moral crusade, the crown jewel of a compassionate administration finally guaranteeing health care as a right for all Americans. For the millions who gained coverage, it felt like a lifeline. But for millions of others, that crown jewel quickly revealed itself to be a crown of thorns. As deductibles skyrocketed, premiums soared, and familiar insurance plans vanished overnight, the promise of affordable care began to feel like a cruel joke. The entire debate was framed as a battle between progress and obstruction, but this simplistic narrative deliberately ignored the immense pain and bureaucratic chaos it was inflicting on a huge swath of the population, setting the stage for one of the most controversial and divisive legislative battles in a generation.
Michelle Obama surprised fans on our new podcast by saying her pet peeve about her husband is that he's chronically late. For example, we're still waiting on him to admit he's from Kenya. And as for Barack's pet peeve about Michelle, he's mad that she keeps leaving the toilet seat up. When she cleaned
Gutfeld unleashes his full arsenal of scorn on the Affordable Care Act, arguing it was a spectacular failure on almost every level. The rollout of the Healthcare.gov website was an international embarrassment, a multi-billion-dollar technological disaster that symbolized the project's blend of incompetence and hubris. The president's now infamous promise, "If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor," became a punchline as insurance networks were shredded and millions were forced to find new providers. Gutfeld frames the ACA as a bait-and-switch of epic proportions, promising affordability but delivering bankruptcy-inducing deductibles. Then there's the Nobel Peace Prize, awarded to Obama just months into his first term, a move Gutfeld finds eternally hilarious. He calls it the political equivalent of winning an Oscar for watching a movie, a bizarre gesture of goodwill that occurred even as the administration was dramatically escalating drone warfare in the Middle East. And through it all, the media acted as the administration's personal public relations firm, framing every misstep as a nuance and every failure as a noble effort, while the NSA, under this Nobel laureate, was busy building the most expansive surveillance apparatus in human history.
And maybe Obama had something to do with today's economy. I mean, without Obama, would we have Trump? Fact is, this debate says a lot about life today. The Trump economy is so great that Trump haters now want credit for it. Next thing you know, Obama will claim credit for putting kids in cages.
Now, let's rewind the tape to Wall Street, the epicenter of the 2008 financial cataclysm. Obama swept into office on a wave of public fury, with a clear mandate to hold the architects of the collapse accountable and champion the interests of the little guy. Instead, as Gutfeld bitingly observes, the administration's approach resembled hiring a pack of wolves to redesign the security system for a chicken coop. Key economic posts were filled with the very same Wall Street insiders who had championed deregulation, and the big banks received massive bailouts with virtually no strings attached. The executives who gambled with the global economy walked away with their bonuses intact, while millions of Americans on Main Street were handed foreclosure notices and a lecture on fiscal responsibility. This glaring double standard was largely ignored by a press corps that seemed far more interested in covering the First Lady's fashion choices. Gutfeld argues this wasn't just a policy failure, it was the golden age of journalistic malpractice, where every presidential action was deemed historic and every critique was dismissed as partisan noise.
5 more words.
Fact: Obama's now a Republican.
Everyone knows that getting rid of the deficit will require some tough decisions. And that includes cutting back on billions of dollars in programs that a lot of people care about. But what should be easy is getting rid of the pointless waste and stupid spending that doesn't benefit anybody.
The supposed progressive revolution in education never quite materialized either. Obama's signature initiative, Race to the Top, was presented as a bold plan to fix failing schools, but Gutfeld dismisses it as little more than academic trickle-down. The strategy involved dangling billions of federal dollars in front of states in exchange for adopting policies centered on standardized testing and weakening teacher protections. Critics argue this did little to address the root causes of educational inequality in inner cities and instead created a culture of teaching to the test, stifling creativity and burning out educators. The hypocrisy didn't stop there. Gutfeld delights in pointing out the absurdity of Obama's passionate sermons on gun control, often delivered while he was surrounded by a phalanx of armed Secret Service agents. The message was clear: guns are a problem for you, not for me. And on immigration, the disconnect between image and reality was staggering. While being lauded as a champion of immigrant rights, his administration deported more people than any other in American history, earning him the moniker Deporter-in-Chief from activists and quietly laying the groundwork for the very border enforcement systems that would later ignite a national firestorm.
On Sunday, Val Jarrett went on CNN to defend her pal, President Obama. I wonder if the president prides himself on the fact that his administration hasn't had a scandal and that he hasn't done something to embarrass himself.
The president prides himself on the fact that his administration hasn't had a scandal and that he hasn't done anything to embarrass himself.
Now that's a low bar for achievement. He hasn't embarrassed himself. But it's true, no one on his staff was caught in bed with a giraffe yet. But to agree with Val, you got to ignore the IRS, the DOJ, Benghazi, Secret Service, Bo Bergdahl, and the secret server that led to the Orange Crush.
And then there is the national debt, the fiscal elephant in the room that everyone politely ignored. Under Obama's watch, the debt nearly doubled, soaring from around $10 trillion to nearly $20 trillion. Gutfeld is consistently floored by any attempt to label this record as economically responsible, comparing it to calling an arsonist a pioneer in urban renewal. While Obama inherited an economic crisis, Gutfeld argues that his administration's solution was to pour gasoline on the fire with unrestrained spending and then act surprised when the deficit exploded. After leaving office, the pivot was seamless. Obama didn't retire to a quiet life. He rebranded himself as the nation's philosopher, king, and most sought-after cultural narrator, dispensing wisdom from his multimillion-dollar estates. This transition into a hyper-elite lifestyle only sharpened the critique that he had become completely detached from the concerns of ordinary people. And when his successor began dismantling his legacy with executive orders, it exposed the fragile, temporary nature of his policies, which Gutfeld notes were built not on lasting consensus but on the fleeting power of a presidential pen.
Today we woke up to breaking news. Obama isn't woke at all.
This idea of purity and you're never compromised and you're always politically woke and all that stuff, you should get over that quickly. The world is messy. There are ambiguities. People who do really good stuff have flaws. Like if I tweet or hashtag about how you didn't do something right or used the wrong verb, or then I can sit back and feel pretty good about myself because, man, you see how woke I was?
Let's not forget the central promise of unity, the idea that Obama would transcend the bitter divisions of red and blue America. Gutfeld argues that the reality was the complete opposite. He contends that the administration perfected the art of divide and distract, expertly using the levers of identity politics to shift the national conversation away from failing economic and foreign policies. While the country became embroiled in furious debates over cultural wedge issues, the fundamental structures of power remained untouched. Gutfeld asserts that the Obama era weaponized political correctness, creating a climate where a legitimate policy disagreement was often smeared as bigotry and intellectual dissent was treated as a form of social heresy. This wasn't incompetence. It was a calculated strategy. Every move felt meticulously choreographed, every statement polished by focus groups, creating what Gutfeld calls theater governments, a performance so convincing that many failed to notice the scandal-free label was only possible because a compliant media refused to investigate anything too deeply, keeping scandals like Fast and Furious or the IRS targeting controversy locked away like embarrassing family secrets.
And now, technically, it's a scandal telling America you can keep your doctor, a callous deception that hurts millions. And it's a scandal of will to deny a toxic doctrine fomenting apocalyptic violence. And it's a scandal to ignore the modern Black Death, a plague currently crippling Chicago. Obama's tenure had more dirty linen than Charlie Sheen's hamper. But when your heart's in the right place, doing the wrong thing's always forgivable. And maybe scandal was just so
far from draining the swamp, Gutfeld claims that Obama simply renovated it, adding a new wing and a 5-star restaurant. Under his administration, the federal bureaucracy didn't shrink. It swelled into a colossal entity, with government power expanding into nearly every facet of American life. New agencies were created, and existing ones were empowered with vast new regulatory authority, all while accountability seemed to vanish. Gutfeld jokes that the government grew like a chia pet on a diet of taxpayer money and media adulation, and just add praise and watch the bloat blossom. This expansion was accompanied by a distinct air of intellectual arrogance. Gutfeld paints a picture of a president who seemed perpetually convinced of his own brilliance, often speaking with a condescending tone to anyone who dared to question his vision. By the time he left office, America wasn't so much transformed as it was bewildered. The nation was more divided, more indebted, and buried under a mountain of eloquent but empty rhetoric. The man who promised to lift up the country had, in the end, primarily succeeded in levitating his own legacy to the sound of thunderous and often uncritical applause. In the final analysis, Greg Gutfeld's blistering takedown isn't just about one man, it's a mirror held up to an entire era of American politics, forcing us to ask if we're still falling for the same old tricks. He argues that once you look past the slick branding, the perfectly timed pauses in the speeches, and the halo of media adoration, you find a leader who governed like a group project he outsourced to unelected bureaucrats while he focused on curating the vibes. The cultural seeds planted during his tenure have now grown into the thorny thickets of today's landscape, from the rise of cancel culture to the weaponization of identity politics that now dominates our most important institutions. He didn't just lead a country, he laid the blueprint for a society that increasingly confuses social media hashtags with meaningful action and moral lectures from seaside mansions with genuine leadership. If you found this breakdown as revealing as we did, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an expose. We want to know what you think. Was Obama's legacy a triumph or a carefully constructed illusion? Drop your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below.